Hello. I am here again because of something that is quite important to me to express. I recently had a run-in, if you will, with a new medication. So anyway, basically what had happened was, unfortunately, over the years following a series of events combined with personal self-realization that in some ways I was making a lot of waves in my life, although later I realized that many of those waves were also the people who I brought into my life that were psychologically damaging me and made me question everything until I was falling apart and couldn't find ways to put myself back together and felt basically questioning myself all the time. I sought therapy. I went on a year basically of very intensive soul searching, asking questions, and also exploring information I had known about different psychiatric conditions, if you will, and also taking some family history and also, history and current generation cousins who also appear to be on spectral. I kind of just realized that I was. It was a matter of finding who I was and why I was different and the different gifts and talents that I was displaying. And I think that it's a very different thing, and it's a quite a wonder actually when you first realize that you've lived all your life completely kind of like not the person that you thought you were, but you're still you. And a lot of things are asking why you mess a lot of things up, or why your thoughts are everywhere, and why you can't focus. And so it started with the discovery and the diagnosis of Aspergers, and then later it was determined or believed that I also had a form of ADHD called the Ring of Fire. But inside there was a small voice telling me that the ADHD didn't sound right. I still question it. And for really within only the last few years, I have shown the inability to focus or concentrate and hold conversations. I have felt that these symptoms or these whatever external reactions were posing as or appear to be ADHD was almost more some sort of like a PTSD or a life shock reaction, and actually even more recently found that I had eye strain and that I am losing my eyesight. So that does play into your ability to concentrate. So, because also only a few years ago I was an honor student, a very active honor student, attending a private, well-known university, and I had never had problems sitting still, except for in my elementary years, which was due primarily to my advanced intellect and my extreme boredom. So I was there's no 6 or 7-year-old child who is at home reading Edgar Allan Poe and Irish folk literature while practicing division and watching science programs like Nova and Newton's Apple, who is going to sit still for 6 hours once they finish Dick and Jane and simple math. And at some point I'm probably going to do some sort of insight about that as well. There's the other things is, as a child, I would sit for most anything Fantasia and also Congress. I sat in at the Capitol building for a Congress meeting, and I've been to the Smithsonian, many museums. There's never been an issue. The only time it's been reported that I ever had any behavioral issues was at Disney World. So that really fits into more of an autistic spectrum, I believe. In a very stereotypical way, unfortunately. But I was becoming very super scattered mentally. I was always late for things. I was even not finished projects. And the people around me were gnawing on me and really getting on me to get myself together and to get my emotional roller coaster under control. So I decided to see and go ahead about getting Adderall prescribed. And before I go on, emotional roller coaster really is just the extreme levels of emotions that I experience, which are more than what most people are non-neurodivergents would probably experience. I think that we're a little more extreme in some ways, or experience emotions more exponentially. But I decided to go ahead and listen to these people and try to get my life in order based on their expectations, and also to kind of maybe help me out a little bit. And they got Adderall prescribed, and to see what it would do as a permanent Band-Aid to a lifetime of woes. Despite all of my lifelong instinctive and perfectly legitimate reasons for not being medicated. Earlier on, in my childhood, it was more often that medication was used to try to figure out the condition versus as the condition being diagnosed and then medication being prescribed. But I always didn't want to change either, so it was just very different for me to go ahead and try and experience a drug to make me fit in, I guess. So there were many pros and cons to the experience. The first 2 weeks were really good. I woke up in the morning, I took my medicines, did my household chores, got things done, went to work, got things accomplished, etc. I felt really good. And then suddenly one day I realized that something was switched off. And in my once racing brain of everything, including some of the most fascinating information that was fed to me in order to bring a lot of what I believe were the spectrum mysteries together, there was absolute silence and crickets. And I escaped into what my thoughts, I guess, and I yelled, or I thought out, is there anybody out there? And there was no answer. So I guess psychically knocked harder, and there was still no answer. And they may have heard me, but I couldn't hear them. And I felt the door closing as I started that first script bill.